Hey everybody, welcome to Monday. Now this Monday is a special Monday because this Monday is my birthday. And for my birthday, I got Anita Sarkeesian kind of calling me out and saying things about me that aren't true. Happy birthday to me. There's probably going to be a lot of singing this video as a coping mechanism. I warn you in advance. If you like this sort of thing, me dealing with potentially unpleasant stuff in a humor-filled way, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LianaK. All right, let's get into this ish. I am going to start from the beginning, so it will take a while to get into. Bear with me, but I want to be totally fair to Anita Sarkeesian, because this is a battle of ideas, and this is not personal for me. It's clearly gotten very personal for her, and you'll see that in a bit, but this is not personal to me. I have been saying since I went and looked it up like 2014 that my issue with feminist frequency is an intellectual and professional one, not a personal one. That is a quote from a piece I wrote in February 10th, 2015 that I discovered is no longer on the internet. The only thing left is the audio version that I did as a companion piece. So at least that's still up there. But I've pulled some choice quotes because you guys know me. I come to the table with evidence to back up what I'm saying, right? But let's start at the beginning, and when we get to the end, stop. Okay? This is the thread that started it. Now, full disclosure, I am not a Ninja fan. I am not in his demographic. I don't like his choice to not stream with women. And generally his content is just not for me. However, facts are facts and truth is truth. So she decided to call out Ninja for reasons I do not understand, because she could have made this point without calling out a particular person. Okay, so here's goes. We need to talk about the relationship between fans and influencer streamers. A lot of y'all claim that an influencer has no control over their fans and cannot be held responsible for what their fans do. This is inaccurate. Okay, I think, quite honestly, that's a bit of a straw man, but let's hear her out. I don't think anybody says an influencer has no control. An influencer has limited control. I think that's sort of the Overton window on this issue, but let's go on. In brackets, granted, these are probably the same people who claim that media has no influence on us, so I don't know why I'm bothering, but here goes. Okay, she's already getting passive-aggressive, but okay, give her the benefit of the doubt. Influencers create the culture of a space. I hate when she's redundant like that. Is it a culture? Okay, it's a culture. Influencers create the culture, whether that's comment sections, social media, Discord, Twitch, etc. They consciously and unconsciously share their values, and fans participate because of those shared values, or they learn to share them. Interesting theory, okay. So for a clearer example, in a workplace, an all-white male leadership who are not familiar with the experiences of their marginalized employees, nor are they willing to learn, tend to have much higher toxicity and animosity in the workplace. No data given, but okay. It's not a surprise that video game companies whose leadership holds toxic values and the games themselves perpetuate those values also seem to have the most toxic fans and community. I'd argue with that. There's nothing, like, I don't think there's any correlation. If that were true, well, I guess Naughty Dog is a toxic work environment, and I guess BioWare is a toxic work environment, and I mean, there were stories about Riot Games, but I don't know. The most progressive game companies on the planet seem to have toxic fandoms. The weird one is, I mean, League of Legends is toxic for no real good reason, but let's go on. I'm just not, I don't want to let these things pass unchallenged, but that's not the point. So I'm going to limit myself. Okay. This is no different from streamers and influencers. Studies show that if a streamer uses oppressive language, Their chat is also likely to use that same oppressive language. They've been given permission that this is a community where racist, sexist, ableist language is okay. All right, I'm pausing here because I have been trying to get people on my Twitch streams, and my Twitch streams aren't very big, to just stop using the word bitch. And I can't do it. I have to keep checking people. Why? Because new people show up. And I've settled for the fact that, all right, there's a conversation about why I don't like the word. Short version, I don't like the word because it's lazy. If you take the word bitch out of your vocabulary, you actually have to isolate what you find disagreeable about a particular person. So that conversation happens, but I can't stop use of the word no matter how often I say it's not okay. All right? But keep that in mind, okay? If a streamer uses oppressive language, their chat is also likely to use that same oppressive language. They've been given permission that this is a community where that's okay. Remember that. Language. Setting an example of language counts. In Ninja's case, as one of the biggest streamers of all time, his constant insistence that he will not stream with women signals his values. He can deny this all he wants, but he is signaling to his audience that women are inferior, not good at games, and not worthy of his platform. So she's jumped now from active language to inferred opinion. That's a jump. I wouldn't say that Ninja constantly insists he wouldn't stream with women. He said it drunk at a party, I believe, once, and he said, yeah, that's what I believe. But I am not aware, and granted, I'm not the biggest Ninja viewer, but I'm not aware, for the record, that he constantly says this, okay? His audience accepts this and internalizes this by continuing to participate in a space that perpetuates sexist attitudes. The sexism is pollution that everyone in that community is breathing in. Okay. So, okay. No, Ninja is not responsible for every single action of every single fan, but he is responsible for creating an environment that encourages sexist attitudes, especially knowing how prevalent and damaging online harassment is. That's a bit of an assumption. But I don't know how you claim that he's not responsible and responsible at the same time. But this is the part that I'm like, Merp. He and anyone with a significant following do not get to simply throw their hands up and say, well, I didn't directly tell them to harass anyone, and therefore I am not responsible. Influencers influence. They shape the attitudes around them, for better or for worse. For better or worse, okay? He and anyone with a significant following do not get to simply throw their hands up and say, well, I didn't directly tell them to harass anyone, and therefore I am not responsible. That is what she said. Now, many of you found this channel because of the piece I did on February 10th, 2015, about how Anita Sarkeesian's followers almost harassed me out of gaming. Okay? And within that, quotes, I went back and wrote it down. Within that, I said things like, feminism is diverse. When a single voice becomes too powerful, it stifles other voices that have just as much to offer. I also said, the supporters of feminist frequency enable and participate in online bullying of those holding dissenting opinions. I also said Anita's personal biography is not relevant to that issue. I said, even if you disagree with a person, they're still a person. People are not bad because they have some bad ideas. I said, people at the time, this was back in 2015, people are throwing money at controversy, but they're not rewarding sense. And I said that the industry was more interested in propping up existing female voices instead of cultivating new ones. And then I said, the rise of feminist frequency has been accompanied by a vicious form of social aggression that's unleashed on anyone who disagrees with Anita Sarkeesian and Jonathan McIntosh. Active developer support has emboldened the bullying by the feminist frequency fan mob that often seeks to silence dissent instead of encouraging diversity and debate. Instead of making things better for women in video games, these phenomena, I actually did that. That's an exact quote. have strengthened the token status of women because all women are now judged in comparison to Anita Sarkeesian. This has forced women into two roles: angry feminist stereotype, aka a Sarkeesian-esque trope, or a freelancer relegated to the back room where all the less desirables fight for slim pickings. That was February 10th, 2015. Okay. I also said that the treatment of Anita Sarkeesian is unacceptable. So I said harassment is bad. She doesn't deserve it either. But I said she serves as a source of inspiration to bully anyone who expresses a form of dissent. Now, Anita and I are sort of saying similar things here. So I got a little cheeky. I own that this is cheeky because I think, you know what, something's been in the air, as she said, for 6 years. 6 years. I think it'd have come to her attention by this point. So according to that, her standard that anyone with a significant following doesn't just get to simply throw up their hands and say, well, I didn't tell them to do it, therefore I'm not responsible, right? So I got cheeky. I said, I guess this is an apology for the years of harassment I've received from FemFreak fans? Question. I accept. Now please get them to stop. Not mean, right? Cheeky, but not mean. Well, the cray-cray happened next, okay? And by cray-cray, I mean the colloquial, not literally mentally ill, okay? Instead of going, okay, fair point, the way Sargon of Akkad did, which still blows me away, in a good way, instead of setting an example, which would have been so easy, right? Like when somebody does that, after you do that, you score points for going, you know what? You're right. If my supporters harassed you, I do not condone that. That's not right. People should stop it. That's modeling the behavior she claims people to want, right? That would make sense. Oh, that's not what happened. She took my tweet, scratched it out middle school style. This is why I said it came to my attention recently, so I stopped doing this, that people can just look up the text of the tweet and find out who it is. That's my tweet. As you see, she didn't even take the verified check off of it, okay? I am absolutely floored by this tweet. This person directly fanned the flames of Gamergate's misogyny by playing the cool chick okay with sexism and has profited off positioning herself as, well, basically not me, a woman in games who tells men that loving sexism is a-okay. But there's more. I do not have any recollection of ever actually referring to her publicly or even acknowledging her existence. The deep irony and delusion of this tweet is that she did the thing she's accusing me of. 1, I accused her of nothing directly. 2, Miss Listen and Believe said that it was a delusion. And 3, what happened to, I didn't tell them to do anything. I didn't even acknowledge her existence. What the heck happened to influencers create the culture of a space, whether that's comment sections, they consciously and unconsciously share their values and fans participate because of those shared values. And okay, we all know what her shared values are, okay? Her values are that I encourage misogyny and I'm okay with sexism. And that I actively tell men that sexism's okay. So this is grade A gaslighting here. But it's also a big chunk of, it's okay when we do it. Like, this is one of those things where she has gotten no better in 5 years because she doesn't have to get better. Now, granted, as people have said, her relevance is diminished greatly. And I mean, you guys may have seen me joking at the time where I'm like, hey guys, she said I was cool. Did you see that? She called me a cool chick. Like, I'm not gonna get upset about this because this kind of proves me right, and it's a head spinning 180 in terms of the behavior she expects of other people and then the behavior she engages in herself. And look, when you've been harassed, it's a horrible thing to hear that people who like you are harassing somebody else. And in the process of this whole thing, some people who do support me said some pretty nasty things. I called some of them on it. It was impossible to stop everybody, but I was like, hey, whoa, let's keep it in bounds. Like, no personal attacks. Let's stick to the behavior, not the person. But I'm not going to say that nobody that likes me has never harassed Anita Sarkeesian. I know they have. I have tried to stop it. I can't do it. I don't, and I refuse to accept that that's because I cultivated some sort of environment. It's the exact opposite. I was like, hey, guys, back me up. But the fact that I said, hey, your followers are harassing me, did it in sort of a light joking way. And she not only called me sexist and delusional and accused me of doing the same thing to her. I'm sorry, I've never called her delusional. Like, she didn't call me delusional, but she accused me of delusion. Delusion. She stands up at a conference and said it's a radical act to listen and believe women, but when she has the opportunity, it's delusion, right? And this is the problem with these hardline approaches, right? If you can't set a standard that you yourself can follow, the minute your views are tested, you look like a profound hypocrite. Now, what she did, I don't know if it was intentionally sneaky or just a sort of relational aggression learned behavior. It was just, she thought she was trying to cut down on harassment by blanking out the name. But if you don't want to harass, don't create a culture of name calling. And this is someone who fanned the flames of misogyny. Like, that's exactly what she's talking about. She's right that influencers do influence. They do create a culture. That's the culture she's created. The minute I'm criticized, go ad hominem and call out the dogs, right? That's the culture she has created. That is a culture that has led to a huge amount of online bullying and bullying within companies, where managers are so afraid of the feminist frequency mob that they shut down other people with dissenting views. So it's this chain reaction of cancel culture. I've been ostracized. I've had people saying, I'd love to show up to your event, but my boss is an Anita fan and I don't want to be photographed. And of course I understand. I don't want anybody to lose their job over me, but that's how bad it is, right? I've gotten reports from developers that said there's internal tensions. They like had to stop inviting her to speak because the internal tensions were so bad because she was so polarizing that it was tense for a week after she showed up to speak. And that's not because of the particular opinion she espouses on an issue. It's the savagery of her following that is the problem, because nothing she says in terms of her viewpoint should cause that much dissension within a company. It's that cancel mob that is not as powerful as it once was. You have felt the vice releasing, but either she's totally unaware of this and is just incredibly naive, which is possible. I do think she lives in something of a bubble. But, or it's just do as I say, not as I do. Neither is a terribly good look. Both sort of undermine her position as a thought leader on this issue, especially since she was really late to the party about denouncing Joss Whedon. I mean, his wife came out in 2017. The Black Widow stuff happened before that. I mean, I was out of the gate early on Miss Okay with Sexism was like, I'm not cool with Joss Whedon turning Loki into some run-of-the-mill sexist who calls, Black Widow a mewling Q. It wasn't Q. It was another word that I'm not going to use here because I don't know if it's okay on YouTube. But, I'm not okay with that. Loki never showed any inkling of sexism in the first Thor movie. He was closer to his mother than his father. So the idea that he would attack a woman that way is just totally out of character. And then Joss Whedon also gave Black Widow that bullshit infertility storyline. But before that, I mean, yes, Anita Sarkeesian did, I believe, write her master's thesis on the problems with Buffy. But the problems with Buffy go deep, okay? Not only did this guy create a situation where Angel had sex with Buffy and turned evil and claimed, oh, that's because he was happy now. You mean he wasn't happy before he got laid? You mean men can only be truly happy if women put out Joss Whedon and then when they become happy, they turn evil? Gee, it sounds like this man is talking about himself. But then, after he did that, he hooks Buffy up with Spike, who is a serial murderer whose first victim was his own mother. There were problems with Joss Whedon. Now, granted, I've had inside information about him from somebody who worked for him for over 10 years, possibly 15. I don't remember the exact date of the interview where I was told off the record. Strangely, I believed this person. It is one of the people that have spoken out against Joss Whedon. It is not, the information she told me is not public knowledge yet. So I'm going to leave it there because it's not my story to tell. And that's why I've been like, no, he's a bad dude without getting into details because you don't out someone like that. That's their story to tell. But it's not known. It wasn't unknown. Like, if you were in any circles even close to that sphere of influence, you knew what he was about. So, I'm okay with sexism? Really? Like, just last week, and I don't have to defend myself against this. It's ridiculous. But, was it just last week? It seems so long ago that I was like, my entire reason for leave the Miranda butt shots in is you're calling attention to everything else that's an issue with that character. It wasn't me saying sexism's okay. It was me saying, oh man, if you're going to go there, you got much bigger problems. Now, I don't think that, okay, one way or another, either she doesn't acknowledge my existence or she knows enough about me to issue that claim. She can't have it both ways. Either I don't exist in her world or she understands my work enough to accuse me of being a cool chick, cool, who is okay with sexism, not cool. But that, I think, was the crux of her reaction to me. And the fact that she got triggered by me and not the numerous other people I noticed objecting. Like, you got a blind spot here. I do want to say that if anybody liked that post and didn't know it was about me, I do not take it personally. That's why I think what she did was sneaky, because she's having people opt into the idea that this horrible, terrible monster is coming at her, selectively leaving out the identity of the horrible, terrible monster, because that would undermine her narrative, right? And like I said, I don't know if she's doing this deliberately or whether it's just so ingrained as that sort of feminine alternate aggression that I quote Odd Girl Out and I talk about Rachel Simmons' work all the time. I don't know if it's just a reflex. It certainly seems like a reflex. But when you set the culture of somebody catches me off guard, and so my first reaction is to fling out a bunch of untrue ad hominem attacks against them, well, that's creating a culture in a space, right? Like, no matter how you look at this, she's failed at her own theory. But it's that cool chick thing that I keep coming back to. And I think that's actually the crux of it. That women are taught from the time we're litty bitty bitty to, at odds, damaging myths. Okay? One, the minute you're seeing your potential prey. Okay? You get seen, men are going to sexualize you. When men sexualize you, you're not safe. We have to keep women out of public view and protected and covered up and shrouded to keep them safe. And two, real women are fawned over by men and put up on pedestals, right? Like, what's the central premise of every shitty YA novel in sort of the Twilight realm? Plain Jane, but actually secretly quite pretty girl draws the attention of this super awesome, cool, possibly sparkly vampire dude by doing absolutely nothing at all but smelling good, right? If you are a proper girl, you passively attract someone wonderful without being seen. This is impossible, right? It's not. It sends this idea that women either have inherent worth or an inherent lack of worth. So if you're not one of those women that people tend to notice, it's not because you can do things differently. It's just because you inherently have no value. And I think based on the body of Anita Sarkeesian's work, she clearly sees herself as that unseen woman, as the woman not represented, while still holding on very tightly to that idea whenever a woman is seen and desired, she is now under threat and at risk, right? And so, people who feel that way, and it's a legitimate feeling. Like, a lot of women feel this way. Honestly, I used to feel this way. Part of it was because, unfortunately, when I grew up, if you were you couldn't be smart and female where I grew up. You had to be smart and therefore one of the guys, or female and therefore a distinctly different thing, right? I ended up hanging out with a lot of gay dudes to sort of get over that. And it was weird, right? Like, it was, Liana, if you were a girl, would you like me? Like, a guy, I was tutoring him. How cliche is that? And he said that. And I'm like, I mean, I was already a D cup by that point. That's how weird it was. But that's high school. Like, unfortunately, youth are not exposed to anything anymore that's life beyond high school. For some odd reason, all programming is aspirational now, that people think that teens only want to watch shows about other teens, and 11-year-olds also want to watch shows about teenagers. But, it doesn't give... First of all, it doesn't give girls any sense that you can have value beyond being liked by boys. And it also is like, well, you either have inherent value or you don't. Society determines which that is. And if you end up in the wrong column, well, heck, you're just screwed, right? And I mean, watching shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer can't exactly help, because holy shit, was there not a single size 12 to 16 in all of Sunnydale? Like, really? That many women? None of them that were thick? That in and of itself is a problem, right? Like, that's where I think that this thing about media doesn't override an appropriate real life support system. What media does is, if you're like me and was surrounded by people, mainly other women, who criticized everything you put in your mouth that wasn't on some sort of approved diet list, yeah, that skinny ideal boosted what I was getting from the people immediately around me. It gave me the sense that the rest of the world was like that. Whereas if you grow up in a different environment, your immediate group is like, no, the rest of the world isn't like that. You're getting dissenting views and you're not stuck in an echo chamber. Obviously, we know which group Anita grew up in, right? That's not her fault. The fact that she feels like valueless and uncool, shit, spending all those years with Jonathan McIntosh and Joss Whedon, gee, I wonder why. That's not her fault. But can she be objective based on that clear low self-worth? Like, based on the fact that if you're like cool is allegedly associated with being okay with sexism. And the idea that in order to be cool, you have to be okay with sexism. Maybe she's right, but not in the way that she claims, because what was one of the biggest validations that she got? Joss Whedon praising Tropes versus Women. And after that, she shut up about everything he did. She didn't challenge him on the Black Widow stuff. It took her 3 years to denounce him after his wife came out and basically said what everybody's saying now. Like, it took so many victims for her to finally come out and say something. People don't have to, they can't possibly hear about every element of every Me Too allegation, everything like that. Shit, I just found out about the Cass Anvar thing like a few weeks ago. Made me sad. But this was known. Like, this is someone you know. And I'm okay with sexism? Like, the whole thing is so absurd that it just seems to me like it was a knee jerk because she thinks I'm cooler than her. And I'll take that compliment, as backhanded as it was, because that's the only factual thing she actually said. I don't like her gaslighting. And I don't want to make too light of this, because and this is the last thing I'll say in a very long video, I am used to this. But this dim memory that I keep having to reconnect with remembers a time where this sort of abuse was new to me. And it felt like my world was falling apart, okay? And the problem with people who set this tone and periodically just lash out at people and make these pronouncements that allow a whisper campaign to tell people who it was really about without her having to be accountable for it in public, she'll eventually hit somebody who doesn't have friggin', it's not even skin like leather anymore. It's the Beskar boob armor she hates so much. I still don't think that's boob armor, but she's going to hit somebody, or people like her, people that have been influenced by her, are going to go after someone that can't handle it. It's probably already happened and we just haven't heard about it. One of those nameless, faceless statistics that everybody likes to beat the drum talking about, but nobody likes to stop their Twitter bully adrenaline rush enough to try to prevent the next one, right? These are not harmless acts. And while I can set an example of being able to take it, because no bully like this is worth your mental health. No bully like this is worth your sanity and your life. Okay? Nobody. If people are making you feel this way, there are exceptions to this, of course. But if people are making you feel this way, just because you happen to hold a dissenting view from theirs, right? You're not saying anyone's bad. You're not dehumanizing anyone. No. You just have a different viewpoint. They're not worth it. Okay? They're not worth that. They're wrong about you. Because they can't claim to not know you and then make those pronouncements about you. But if you're not used to it, it still hurts because you're like, why would someone say this? Because they're mean. And they're mean and they're insecure and they're miserable and that's the end of it, right? I've had days where I've been insecure and miserable and I've probably behaved badly. And I take shit for it. But this is no joke. Like, I'm trying to thread a needle here. And I'll touch more on this on Wellness Wednesday because that's the place for it. But just because I'm okay with this, it's okay to not be okay. A commercial freaking stole my tagline on that, but that's okay. These things hurt because they're designed to hurt. They hurt less with practice. Unfortunately, the only way they hurt less is if you just go through it over and over and over again. But some people don't make it through that gauntlet. And those are the people I care about. This crap has to stop. We have to start rewarding someone for saying, yeah, you're right. That probably did happen. I'm sorry. Instead of rewarding someone for going, listen and believe. Oh, not you. That's a delusion. As long as, as long as people keep doing this, people are still gonna get hurt, right? And I'm not okay with that. And that's why I make videos saying Gina Carano has a right to speak. Because Colin Kaepernick has a right to speak. And that's why I make videos saying, there are consequences. They both paid the same price. They both have a right to speak. People can be dissented with without being shouted down, right? Kelly Marie Tran should be able to be in a movie without being bombarded with crap. And we can't stop things like that from happening if various sides are like, it's okay when we do it, right? And I did, just in case anyone was wondering, that's why I got a little distracted for a bit. But I did say, like, look, here it is. Okay. I'm going to show where this is left so you guys can see how I handled it. Okay. So here's what I said. Hey, I'm not going to deny that some people who watch my content have said nasty things to and about Anita Sarkeesian. I've told them to cut it out when I've seen it and tried to set an example of disagreement without hate. I've blocked some people. That's all anyone can do. The fact that Anita Sarkeesian has accused me of being okay with sexism, fanning the flames of harassment, and outright delusion are way over the line. I call on Anita to apologize in the spirit of respectful and fair debate. Influencers influence, after all. That's where I left it. I didn't retaliate saying she's this, that, and the next thing, right? She's a this, she's a that. I didn't say that. I'm like, this isn't true, but I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm going to once again give you the opportunity to practice what you preach, which is what I did the first time when she went all mean girl on me, right? Like, indirect whisper campaigns are female bullying. And people haven't done the reading on it enough to recognize what it is. We know, like, call out culture is a call out culture. When it's the right people, when it's the wrong people, it's bullying, right? How does anybody keep track of this? The only way to keep track of it is, as my friend Pastor Adam says, take the high road. Yes, pastor. I have a friend of a pastor, even though I'm Jewish. It can work. It can happen. But I am asking everybody, please break this cycle. Please stop thinking it's okay to just unload with personal attacks on someone that makes you feel insecure or uncomfortable. Treat people not the way you think you've been treated in the past, but how you want to be treated. The only way anything is going to get better is if people start going, you first, and people start going, I am going to set an example of what I think is fair behavior. And I have no problem with people disagreeing with me. I went over and read the subreddits from 2015 when that Why Feminist Frequency almost made me quit writing about games come out. And it was a bunch of, people going, oh, she drives me crazy. Basically, she drives me crazy because I can't agree with her 0%. I agree with her less than 100, but more than 0. She drives me crazy, right? And some of it got kind of nasty, but whatever. I took a big swing. That happens, right? I'm always worried. It's weird. I'm always worried when something is too popular. Because then I feel like I don't feel that I said something unique at that point, or I said something challenging, or I said something worthwhile. All I did was say something popular. And I wonder, then I start, and this is an emotional reaction, but then I start wondering if I'm pandering, right? When I get no pushback. There are times that I feel like the pushback is totally unfounded. Like when I took issue with Joss Whedon back when it wasn't popular. I didn't feel like people were listening to the content of what I was saying. People are like, you're trying to censor him. No, it's about how he wrecked the freaking character. Not about censorship. It's about how it didn't make sense coming out of that character's mouth. Missed point, right? And other things like boss fight stung in the first 2 episodes because I tried to do something different and people just didn't get it. Episode 3 was better in that regard. But I'm not saying that's harassment. Does it feel good? No. Does it feel good to be misunderstood? No. Does it feel good to be freaking flat out people spreading untruths about you? No, that doesn't feel good. It feels profoundly unfair. But the only way to make people see that that's not true about you is to behave better than them and not stoop to your level. And when you're hurt, that's hard because hurt people. But please try, because I'm tired of seeing people destroyed. So If you're not as tough as me, don't feel bad. And I'm going to be repeating this on Wellness Wednesday. If you're not as tough as me, don't feel bad. In a better world, no one would need to be this tough. I am an asshole sometimes because of that toughness. It's not good. It's essential, but it's not good. And I don't want people to have to be as tough as I am. I want people to be able to be idealistic and be scared and do it anyway, and not be terrified that everything in their life is going to be ripped away from them because of one bad or misconstrued tweet, right? Or 4 bad or misconstrued tweets if you tweet a lot. That's not the world I want to live in. So I want to be a part of something better. So that was super long, but I think it's warranted. Help support this channel. I hate this segue. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Liana K. That was tacky. Thanks for watching.